We're going to kick off the morning with the latest coronavirus variant, officially named Omicron. The mutation was first identified in South Africa. It's now being detected from Australia to Germany and Canada. Now, it's still unclear how transmissible the variant is or how severe of an infection it actually causes. And that information is according to the World Health Organization. Early samples of PCR tests in South Africa show that 90% of over 1,000 cases reported just last week alone were caused by this new variant. And I should mention, only about 42% of the population in South Africa is already vaccinated. The WHO is now calling on member states to take immediate action by adjusting international travel bans, increasing testing, and of course encouraging mask use. Though experts warn there's still a lot to learn about this variant and the threat that it poses. So let's take a listen at how world leaders have been reacting so far.
This is not the first variant, and this time the world showed it is learning.
There is no scientific justification whatsoever for keeping these restrictions in place.
It does appear that Omicron spreads very rapidly and can be spread between people who are double vaccinated.
The new variant is concerned. It moved from being a variant of investigation to a variant of concern within the space of 24 hours.
We call upon these countries that have imposed travel bans on our country and our other Southern African sister countries to immediately and urgently reverse their decisions.
Here to break down all this news is Bloomberg Intelligence's senior pharmaceutical analyst and director of the research for Europe, Sam Fazeli. Sam, we're also joined by spokesperson with the WHO, Christian Lindmeier. Thank you also for being here. But we're going to kick it off with Sam. What have we learned about Omicron over the weekend? What are the biggest takeaways here?
Hi, and thank you very much for having me on. I don't think there's been an enormous amount of new information with regards to the virus, a bit more definition of the mutations, etc. But I think what's pretty clear is that people have got a little bit perhaps too excited by comments on anecdotal information from South Africa that perhaps this is a virus that causes milder disease. We all wish that to be the case, but I don't believe that we really have the data to support that view yet. And certainly we need more information from other countries who have different demographics, different age populations, different comorbidities, etc., to be able to really drill down into whether this virus does cause a milder disease. And then, of course, at the same time, what we've learned is that, as expected, the drug makers are doing all they can to get the new vaccines for the Omicron variant.
Yeah, tell me about that. What do we know so far about how well the current vaccines we have available to us might work against this particular mutation?
Yeah, we don't. We have no information yet. It takes a good, I would say, 2 or 3 weeks. I haven't done an experiment like this myself, but I can imagine that the hardest part is to grow up the virus or versions of the virus or pseudoviruses, as they're called, to do the experiments on. But I think a couple of weeks is probably the minimum that it will take to get the answers. But I want to highlight that there's already vaccinated blood from third shot vaccines and also blood from subjects who have been given a beta variant vaccine, which I'm pretty sure by the end of this month, being December, I'm referring to, we will be able to find out whether they are better at Omicron than the original vaccine or not.
What can we learn about Omicron based on where we're seeing it and the vaccination rate in those areas? I just mentioned South Africa has a little bit of a lower vaccination uptake at 42% of the population, but we've already seen Omicron also in Israel, which has about 78% of the population vaccinated, which makes me nervous, right?
Yes, I mean, we have to, that statistic that you give for South Africa, I think that's probably the proportion of the adult population in terms of the 40 or just over 40%. And to be honest, this variant currently, I think it's more viewed as one that perhaps evolved in an immunocompromised subject, allowing the virus a long time to mutate and continue to be tested, to test its abilities within that person. But in terms of what we're seeing elsewhere, I don't think I'd be too surprised to see it breaking through vaccine, certainly people who had their doses more than a few months ago, just like Delta variant does.
Got it. Sam, really appreciate that. I want to go over to Christian Lindmeier, who is our spokesperson with the WHO. Christian, thanks for being here this morning. To what extent do we need to start to change our behavior at an individual level, given what we know so far about Omicron? Do we need to stop traveling ahead of the holidays? Do we need to stop being in the office?
Well, thanks, Maddie, and thanks for having me. So yeah, the point that Sam's make are absolutely valid here, and the big important part is that we don't yet know everything about this virus, the variant. Actually, we don't know enough. Let's put it that way, and it will take 2-3 weeks that we know more. But we're not defenseless, and that's very important, and that's what the point you're hinting at. We know a lot what we can do, and we know all the means, or most of the means we can do so far. That is, we can protect ourselves, first of all. That remains the good old mask, so to say. Wherever it is necessary, wherever there are crowds, to protect yourself and protect the others. It's always the same combination. You're not only protecting yourself, you're protecting the others. Avoid larger crowds, do a good hand hygiene, and that already goes a long way. And if you have rooms where there's a couple of people in there, try to ventilate, which in winter, of course, is more difficult than in summer. But yes, still, you can do it. And that's important. So that's on the personal level. And on the bigger level, it's important that the countries now do exactly what they started doing, is vigorous testing. Because only with testing do we get a more complete picture and we know what we need to do. And if we have cases, we need to trace them, we need to track them, and we need to treat them with what we have so far. So testing, tracing, and treating, the good old 3 T's we already had earlier this year.
Well, how do you incentivize countries to really go forward with a lot of testing and sequencing when they'll potentially have a negative economic impact by doing that, right? I mean, look at what's happening with South Africa right now. You could argue that they're being economically punished for being transparent about the Omicron variant, right?
You have a very good point there, and that's unfortunate the way it looks like. So, but the reverse is true also. If you do a lot of testing in airports at going out or coming in flights, and any border crossings, and any places where you can do sufficient testing, then you do not need maybe to take such drastic measures as cutting down flights. Because let's not forget, you're not only not maybe taking the one or the other odd case in, but you're also refusing that maybe help can get into that country. Or as we already have seen in a short amount of time, 2 weeks only, we see cases all around the globe already. Right. So I wouldn't be surprised if there are other means. The last lockdowns we've seen, the complete lockdowns in terms of travel lockdowns, have not worked perfectly either. So why would this now? It's much more important to do what we can to track, to trace, and to treat, and to find the cases, to find the people, and go ahead this way. And this helps every country, not only the one country. And that's the most important part here. No country is in this alone. We all need to do this together.
Well, the WHO has historically been cautious on travel restrictions. I think about Ebola when, again, the WHO was a little bit slower to push for intense travel restrictions, favoring the economic pros of keeping borders open, but that didn't necessarily work out too well with Ebola. So what in the WHO's position makes this different?
Ebola and the COVID, the coronavirus are very different. We have a different scenario here. Here we have a pandemic which is already gone around the globe. And we had many countries try travel bans early in the pandemic, and yet it didn't work out. Not saying that it couldn't work out. You can certainly buy time, and that's important. You can maybe buy time to prepare your health system if there's anything you need to prepare for. But more importantly, look at what you already have. We have all the means we need so far. Well, of course, we need maybe adapt the vaccines, maybe adapt treatment. That's exactly as Sam pointed it out. But we have all the necessary tools, or most of them, that we need ready. Let's just use them. Let's not overreact and panic.
Fair enough. Christian Lindmeier, spokesperson with the WHO, thanks for joining us. And also thanks to Sam Fazeli, Bloomberg Intelligence's senior pharmaceutical analyst. Thanks for your time.